As we left the compounds from Oumiya, all of us exhaled breaths that turned white as smoke. While we passed a back alley, we saw a group of Ronin huddling together. I sensed something felt a little off, so I turned around and looked back. It was a familiar tang in my nostrils that I'd surely smelled before.
気づいたか、連中の着物。血の匂いがしたぜ。
ああ、どこぞで切り合いでもしてきたのかもしれねえな。
今の男の一人に見覚えがあります。確か見回り組のものだったかと。
Then that must mean... My bad feeling had been shared with everyone, and we looked at each other. Could it be Sakamoto-san?
急ぐぞ。走れるな。
The urgency of our hunch made us run through the chilly night as the stars twinkled above. There were no lights on in Oumiya, and it was eerily quiet.
おい、誰かいねえか?
Nakura called into the shop, but no voice answered his questions. As we all looked at each other, unsure how to proceed, before taking turns stepping inside. As soon as we opened the door, our noses were filled with the same dank, musty stench as we smelled in the alley. There was no doubt about it. It was the smell of blood. A lot of blood.
山崎、さっきの奴らを追いかけて事情を聞いてこい。手は出すなよ。
承知しました。
Yamazaki answered curtly and ran outside.
坂本がいるのは確か2階だったな。
Harada peered up the stairs, which were dimly lit, and he spoke to me sharply.
お前はついてくるな。俺たちがいいって言うまでここで待ってろ。
Well, we're going with them. I'll go too. Please, let me go with you guys. Whoops. Harada watched me reproachfully. I continued on. If those men were assassins, I don't think they'd still be here. I won't do anything reckless. I promise that I'll follow orders, so please.
そこまで言うんなら仕方ねえな。分かった。そんじゃついてこい。ただし、絶対に俺たちの前に出るんじゃねえぞ。
I carefully walked up the stairs, right behind Nagakura. As we creaked up each step, the stench of blood became stronger and stronger. What could have happened up there? I wanted to see it all with my own eyes, but my gut told me something that made my heart race. The conflict to know for myself pushed me forward, and we made it to the top of the stairs. My whole body froze when I finally seen what was laid before us. Both the sliding door and the hardwood floors were tainted with the stains of fresh blood. In the middle of the room were two men covered in brutal stab wounds all over their bodies. They were... Sakamoto-san! I ran up to him and took his pulse. It seemed like he had a pulse, a faint one though. It was a brief sense of relief, but... just by looking at him, it was clear his wounds, from both quantity and severity, were fatal. I don't think he had much time left. Why? Why would this happen to Sakamoto-san? No, I can't give up just yet. First, I need to tend to his wounds and stitch whatever I can together. I hope I could find some sake nearby. Soju would be preferred, perhaps in the kitchen. I got up to sprint downstairs.
待て。
I heard Sakamoto-san's voice and I stopped in my tracks. Sakamoto-san, do you recognize me? I asked him tenderly, and he curled his lips like he does, and he managed to laugh, bloody face and all.
わかるに決まっちゅうろうが。女の顔は忘れんき。
Sakamoto-san slowly inched a trembling hand, covered in blood, towards my cheeks. His hand moved so gingerly next to me, as if he was afraid of touching me with his blood. As a result of losing so much blood, his fingertips were cold to the touch. Even the charm in his gaze couldn't save him as he watched me helplessly upon the floor.
くそ。最後の最後だ。ついてなかったにゃ。吉信さんが政権を返上してくれた。ようやく日本が新しゅう生まれ変わるちゅう時によ。
His eyes were becoming glossy, and he struggled to breathe as he spoke. I couldn't watch anymore. Sakamoto-san, please, don't strain yourself by talking. Just as I screamed out, the color in his hair gradually faded. Oh, what? His eyes were transforming into a crimson red. I began to sob uncontrollably next to him. Why? Through the coldness and proximity next to him, I could see it, but I couldn't accept it. No, I couldn't believe. No, I didn't want to.
どういた？
It seems as though Sakamoto-san didn't know what was happening to him, and he gazed back at me with a yearning expression. Just then,
こいつ息を吹き返したみてえだぞ。おい、しっかりしろ。
Nagakure was watching Nakaoka on the floor beside Sakamoto-san, and he screamed. The next moment, we saw Nakaoka rise from the ground, although he seemed very weak. Nagakure's body was flung against the wall. Oh shit! Nagakura!
大丈夫か、新八？
ああ、なんともねえが。それより、あいつは。
Even Nakaoka? Oh, what is this root? I followed Nagakura's gaze, and there stood Nakaoka. His hair had turned white and his eyes flamed red. He had turned into a fury. Nakaoka? Why? I asked, my voice shaking with it, and he glared at me like a beast upon its prey.
それはこちらのセリフだ。貴様らはよほどこの日本を滅ぼしたいと見える。
His eyes burned with hatred, gazing upon each one of us with anger.
よく覚えているぞ。俺も坂本も貴様らに切り殺された。
What?
迷う必要など最初からなかったんだ。この後に及んで己の体面や損得感情しか考えぬ幕府の宗苦どもと手を取り合うことなどできるか。
Nakaoka immediately reached for the blood-covered sword resting on his hip, and he pointed it towards us.
こいつ、羅刹になりやがった。油断するなよ、佐野。
分かってるって。
Nakoto shifted his feet and he charged towards Nagakura. Luckily, he managed to see the blade coming. However, the attacks didn't stop there. As the swords continued to clash in the room, Nagakura seemed to be tiring a bit. Harada had tried to back him up, but then...
バカがこの狭い場所でそんな獲物が役に立つと思うか
Nagaoka grabbed a hold of Harada's spear and yanked it back. Then he charged towards Harada with the open space. Harada! Watch out! I instinctively withdrew my kodachi and I attempted to charge at him to distract him.
邪魔をするな
Immediately, he shoved me and my body was flung towards the sliding door.
まさかこいつらが羅刹を実戦に使ってきやがるとはな
Nagakura swung angrily at Nakaoka over and over again, but even with the three of us, Nakaoka handled our attacks with ease. All of us were tiring so quickly, and yet there appeared to be no end to his boundless strength.
音に聞こえる新選組幹部の剣技とやらも所詮この程度か
Nagakura! Harada! I tried moving closer to them for safety.
動く
Nakaoka pointed his sword towards me.
最初からお前は怪しいと思っていた皇庫の憂いを断つためにも今のうちに殺しておいた方が良さそうだな
Mate! This is all a misunderstanding! If we continue to fight, then this will only make things worse for the shogunate and the Tosa!
羅刹となって生まれ変わった俺には土佐などもう関係ない
His words made me shiver from fear.
その子に手は出さないでくださいな、中岡さん。
Oh, this bitch is here. Someone I'd least expected to see in this room waltzed inside, kimono flowing behind her. It was Kaoru. What was she doing here?
どけ邪魔立てすると貴様も殺すぞ
Nakaoka screamed out, but Kaoru looked unfazed. She gave him a cool gaze and continued.
この子には手出し無用です。行動さんからの命令ですよ。お二方にはまだなすべきことが残ってらっしゃるのではないですか。私がせっかく拾ってあげた命なのですから無駄にしてはいけませんよ。
I saved your life? Then that must mean Kaoru was the one who turned the two of them into... Just then, Sakamoto-san raised his head and he tried slowly getting up from the floor.
なんぜ俺は切られたがやなかったがか
ああ切られたさそして俺たちの首を取るためにこうして新選組の奴らがやってきた
That's not true! This is all a misunderstanding! We... As I attempted to explain what had happened, a commotion was heard from the outside.
中岡様、坂本様、人が来ます。まずはここから出ることにしましょう。
Wait, Sakamoto-san! I tried running after him to speak first.
どけ
Nakaoka kicked me square in my stomach, and my body slammed against the wall. I had the wind knocked out of me, but I pushed through the pain to try crawling after them, but...
それでは皆さん方、失礼いたします。次にお会いするときは戦場で、ということになりそうですね。
Then Nakaoka knocked the door open with another kick, and they disappeared from the scene. Now, all that was remaining was the tattered room, filled only with blood and silence. What could I do now? I would have never, in my wildest imagination, pictured Sakamoto or Nakaoka becoming furies. Eventually, Harada gathered himself and stood up, offering me a hand.
平気か？怪我はねえか？
I'm fine, but...
二人ともすぐにここを出るぞ。この状況を誰かに見られちまったら、俺たちが坂本暗殺の犯人にされちまう。
Nakaoka and Harada helped me back up, and we rushed downstairs. Once we returned to the compounds, I felt as if I was stuck in a nightmare when the memories returned to me. Hijikata-san had gathered everyone in the common room once we had gotten back.
なるほど。よくわかった。一歩遅かったってとこか。
坂本暗殺の犯人は見回り組かと思われます。ですが。
Ryoma Sakamoto survived an assassination attempt on his life by drinking the water of life. Shintaro Nakaoka, he survived an assassination attempt on his life by drinking the water of life. He is now a fury.
俺たちがそう触れ回ったところで信じる奴はいねえだろうな。
死にかけてた坂本と中岡ってやつが飲んだ落ち水は高堂さんから渡ったものらしいってことか。
なあ、おそらくはな。
For a moment, everyone was silent. Then Harada chimed in.
大宮にいたあの女、見た顔だ。薫って言ったか。三条生殺事件の時に邪魔してくれた女だ。あいつ、あの時も土佐に味方してやがったぜ。
ってことは高堂さんをかくまってた西国の藩ってな、土佐藩かもしれねえってとこだな。
何にせよ敵側の落ち水が実用に耐えるものになっているとは厄介ですね。
そりゃまあ高堂さんが向こう側についてるんだからな。落ち水の実験も進むだろうよ。
All of the Shinsengumi captains grew agitated, and no one spoke so that they could consider the implications silently. Eventually.
よし、今日のところはこれで解散だ。ご苦労だったな。
With Hijikata-san's blessing, everyone bowed and left the common room. But I couldn't shake this bad feeling, and it really worried me, so I approached Hijikata-san. Oh no.
なんだ、まだ何かあるのか。
I wasn't quite sure if Hijikata-san was the best person to ask this, but... What's going to happen to Sakamoto-san? Hijikata-san thought about it for a second, muttering to himself as if he couldn't put it into words.
こんだけ坂本暗殺の知らせが広まっちまったら、土佐藩も実は生きてるなんて言いにくいだろう。おそらく表向きは死んだってことにするだろうな。羅刹の存在は向こうも明かしたくねえだろうし。
I see. So that means he won't be able to work actively in the political sphere anymore. Sakamoto-san hoped to create a new world without the shogunate or the samurai. Then Hijikata-san began to heed his warning.
坂本が羅刹になっちまった以上、あいつと俺たちの共闘関係はなくなった。今後はあいつを敵だと思え。絶対に気を許すんじゃねえぞ。いいな。
I had a feeling he would say something along those lines to me. I just couldn't bring myself to agree with what he was telling me.
雪村。
Hijikata-san pressed me for a response. わかった。Somehow, I was able to bring myself to say it out loud. Then I bowed quickly and exited the room. After I returned to my room, I tried preparing my futon, but the sights and smells of that room stuck to my senses, and I couldn't sleep. If he was still alive, maybe I could see Sakamoto-san again, but I wondered what my father had in store for him in Nakaoka. And what about Kaoru? No matter how much I searched internally for a clue, no answers would come, so I was left to contend with what could be the worst case. After that night, rumors spread about us fleeing to Oumiya, and I'm not sure who could have seen us leave. Throughout the city of Kyo, people began to speculate that it was the Shinsengumi who assassinated Sakamoto. Then, after all of this, something even the Shinsengumi couldn't expect had confronted us. Something that would change us forever. Before November ended, the Guardians of the Imperial Tomb, which was Ito's faction, had been undergoing serious internal strife. Saito-san had joined the Guardians of the Imperial Tomb as a Shinsengumi spy, and based on the intelligence reports, the Shinsengumi had assassinated Ito. The attack on the Guardians eventually became known as the Abura no Koji incident. During this incident, the demons and the Satsuma intervened, and Heisuke had suffered a critical injury during the resulting altercation. In order for Heisuke to survive, he was forced to drink the serum. At the same time, Chikage Kazuma had planned and executed a coordinated attack on the compounds. The serum, brought into the Shinsengumi by my father, was now slowly eating all of them away. My heart began sinking from the weight of all this.